There's something about routine that makes you feel like life is steady, predictable, safe. You wake up, pour a cup of coffee, kiss your wife on the cheek, and go about your day like everything is exactly as it should be. Until one day, it isn't. That morning, I woke up to the smell of bacon sizzling in the pan and the faint sound of country music playing from the kitchen speaker. My wife, Heather, was at the stove, flipping pancakes, humming along to a song she probably didn't even realize she was singing. It was the kind of morning that made you believe nothing could go wrong. I was scrolling through my phone, answering a couple of emails, when a message popped up from an old coworker, Mike. We weren't exactly close, but he was one of those guys who noticed things, always paying attention to details most people overlooked. Hey man, not sure if I should say anything, but I saw Heather downtown yesterday. She was at that bistro on Willow Street with someone. A guy. Looked familiar. Pretty sure it was Dr. Carter. Isn't that your doctor? I sat up straighter, rereading the text. Heather and Dr. Carter? That didn't make any sense. Sure, he was our family doctor, but why would she be having lunch with him? My first instinct was to brush it off. Maybe she had a medical question, something about the kids. But then I saw the second message. Not trying to start anything, but they looked comfortable. Thought you'd want to know. Comfortable. That word settled in my gut like a lead weight. I glanced over at Heather, still humming, still moving around the kitchen like it was just another normal morning. I wanted to ask her right then and there, but something in me hesitated. Maybe it was fear that I already knew the answer. So I said nothing. Instead, I went through the motions, drinking my coffee, making small talk, pretending like my world hadn't just shifted on its axis. But my mind was racing. She had been going out more lately. Errands, meetings, last-minute plans with friends. At first, I hadn't questioned it. Why would I? She had always been independent, always had a full schedule. But now, every unexplained outing felt like another puzzle piece waiting to be placed. I left for work as usual, but I couldn't focus on a single thing. By noon, I was deep in a hole I had never thought I would dig for myself, scrolling through Heather's social media, looking for anything that might explain her lunch with Dr. Carter. There was nothing suspicious, nothing that screamed guilty. But sometimes, guilt does not leave obvious clues. Sometimes it is careful. That night, I came home wound tighter than a coil, but Heather greeted me at the door with the same warm smile she always had. She kissed me on the cheek, asked how my day was, and I mumbled something about a long day at work. She didn't seem to notice my hesitation. Or maybe she did, but she was good at pretending. I sat on the edge of our bed later that night, staring at the floor while she brushed her hair at the vanity. She looked peaceful, innocent. I wanted to believe her, but I couldn't ignore what I knew. I spent most of the night staring at the ceiling, my mind racing through possibilities, trying to find a reasonable explanation. But no matter how hard I tried, I kept coming back to the same place. If there was nothing to hide, why had she never mentioned it? By the time morning rolled around, I had made my decision. I would ask her. No more assumptions. No more second-guessing. When she walked into the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of orange juice, I leaned against the counter, watching her carefully. "What did you do yesterday afternoon?" She turned to me, completely unfazed. "Oh, just ran some errands." "Why?" I kept my expression neutral. "Mike told me he saw you downtown, at the Willow Street Bistro." For the briefest moment, so quick I almost missed it, her fingers tightened around the glass. Then she forced a small laugh. "Oh yeah, I did stop there for lunch. You didn't mention it last night," I said, my voice calm but firm. She shrugged. "It wasn't important. I was out and got hungry, so I grabbed a bite." "And you were with Dr. Carter?" Her smile faltered just a fraction. "Yeah, I ran into him while I was out. We were both there, so we decided to sit together. No big deal. A coincidence." That is what she was going with. I stared at her for a moment, letting the silence stretch, waiting for her to say something more. But Heather had always been good at keeping her composure. It was one of the things I had admired about her, how she never let anything shake her. Now, it just made me wonder how many times she had done this before. I did not push it further, not yet. If she was lying, I would find out soon enough. Her eyes narrowed the second the words left my mouth. "Are you actually accusing me of something?" Heather asked, setting her glass down with a little too much force. The orange juice sloshed inside, settling slowly, but the tension in the room didn't. "If you are, just say it," she pressed, crossing her arms. "Do not dance around it." I was not dancing. I was measuring my steps, feeling out the truth without showing my hand too early. But Heather was good at shifting the conversation, throwing me off balance before I could pin her down. "You are seriously going to take Mike's word over mine?" she scoffed. "What? Are you going to start tracking my every move? Go through my phone? Follow me around town like some obsessed detective?" That last one hit harder than she probably meant it to. The thought had not even crossed my mind, but now that she said it, it was there, lingering. Was she trying to guilt me into backing off? Or was she trying to steer me away from something I might actually find? I stayed silent, and that silence only pushed her further. "This is insane," she huffed, throwing her hands in the air. "I have done nothing wrong. I am allowed to have lunch with someone without it turning into a federal investigation. Do you even hear yourself?" I wanted to. I wanted to be the husband who laughed at his own paranoia, apologized, and moved on. But trust is a funny thing. It takes years to build and seconds to crack. Heather stormed past me, muttering something under her breath, but I did not stop her. Instead, I stared at the half-empty glass of orange juice sitting on the counter. It was nothing, really, just juice. But to me, it felt like something had been left behind, something unfinished. I knew this was not over. That evening, when she grabbed her purse and said she had errands to run, I simply nodded. I did not argue, did not press her for details. I just watched her leave and made a decision. Tomorrow, I would find out the truth myself. I sat on the couch long after she left, pretending to watch television while my mind replayed every little detail. The text from Mike, the way Heather had snapped at me, the way her eyes flickered just a little too quickly when I mentioned Dr. Carter. She had always been good at keeping her cool, controlling the narrative. But today I had seen something slip, a crack in the armor. And if there was one, there had to be more. Sleep did not come easy that night. At around 2 in the morning, I got up and walked into the kitchen. Her laptop sat on the counter, the screen dark, waiting. I told myself I would not snoop. I was just going to check my email, maybe browse the news to quiet my mind. But the moment I opened it, my fingers hesitated. Heather never changed her passwords, and the temptation, the doubt, was too strong to ignore. I clicked on her email. At first, everything looked normal. Work messages, online shopping receipts, a few friendly exchanges with her sisters. Nothing suspicious. But then my eye caught a message from 2 days ago from a private health clinic. Subject: follow-up consultation, Dr. Carter. I clicked on it. The email confirmed an appointment from last Thursday, 2 days before Mike had seen her at the restaurant. There were no details, just a confirmation, a date, and a time. Heather had never mentioned a doctor's visit. We were not dealing with any health issues, at least none that I knew of. So why was she meeting him privately? I closed the email, my heart pounding. Then I made another mistake. I opened her calendar. There it was, an entry marked for tomorrow at noon. Lunch meeting, Dr. C. My grip on the mouse tightened. Heather had not said anything about having lunch plans tomorrow. No casual mention, no offhand remark. But there it was, scheduled like it was just another part of her routine. I leaned back in the chair, staring at the screen. I was angry, but more than that, I felt something shift inside me. Something cold, something final. This was not just me being paranoid. I did not say a word the next morning. I went through the motions, kissed her on the forehead, told her to have a good day. She smiled at me like nothing was wrong, like she had nothing to hide. But I was done playing the fool. At noon, I left work early, parked my car a block away from the cafe listed in her calendar, and waited. I did not feel good about it. Spying on your own wife is not something you dream of doing. But at that moment, pride did not matter. Trust was already broken, and I needed to see for myself. Sure enough, Heather arrived right on time. She stepped out of her car, smoothed her dress, the red one I'd bought her last year for our anniversary. She had always said it made her feel confident. Now, I wondered who she was wearing it for. I gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. Then I watched her walk inside, and I waited for the truth to reveal itself. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel so tight my fingers ached, watching the scene unfold before me. A few minutes after Heather arrived, Dr. Carter strolled into the cafe. No lab coat, no clipboard, just a man showing up for a casual lunch. He spotted her immediately, and she smiled. One of those warm, familiar smiles that once belonged to me. I felt my stomach tighten as they sat by the window, leaning in slightly, talking in hushed tones. It was the kind of posture people had when they wanted to keep their conversation between just the two of them. And the way Heather tucked her hair behind her ear, laughing at something he said, it was too much. She used to do that with me. I wanted to march in there, flip their table over, and demand the truth right then and there. I wanted to see her face when she realized I had caught her. But something inside me told me to wait. If I blew up now, she would just scramble for excuses, twist the narrative, make me seem like the jealous, paranoid husband. No, I needed to see more. So I sat there, watching as she placed her hand casually on the table between them, as if testing the boundary between friendly and something else. He leaned in slightly, nodding, his expression soft, familiar. This was not just two people catching up. When they finally got up to leave, I resisted the urge to follow them. I had already seen enough. More than enough. My hands shook as I started the car, but I did not drive off right away. I just sat there, gripping the wheel, trying to process the betrayal I had just witnessed. When Heather got home that evening, I was waiting for her. I heard the front door open around 6. The familiar sound of her keys dropping onto the counter. The way she hummed a soft tune under her breath, like everything was normal. "Hey," she called out. "You home?" "Yeah," I said, keeping my voice steady. She walked into the living room, carrying a small shopping bag, her smile as easy as ever. It almost made me sick how effortlessly she could act like today had been just another day. "How was work?" she asked, setting the bag down by the couch. I studied her. The way her lipstick was just slightly smudged. The way her skin glowed, like she had spent the afternoon in good company. She looked happy. "Busy," I said, my voice flat. "What about you?" She shrugged, already turning toward the kitchen. "Same old. Just ran some errands, grabbed some lunch while I was out." I stood up slowly. "That's so." She paused, glancing at me over her shoulder. "Yeah, what?" "You didn't mention having lunch with Dr. Carter." The shift in her expression was quick, so quick that if I had not been watching closely, I might have missed it. Her shoulders tensed just slightly before she forced out a casual laugh. "Oh, that," she said, waving a hand dismissively. I ran into him again, believe it or not. We were both downtown, so we grabbed a bite together. It was nothing serious. I did not think it was worth bringing up. Her words were polished, rehearsed, but I had already seen the truth. "Funny," I said, stepping closer. "That is 2 times in 1 week." She crossed her arms, her smile fading. "Are you seriously doing this again?" "I told you, it was a coincidence. I'm allowed to have friends, you know." I nodded slowly, studying her. "Sure, friends. But I have a hard time believing friends schedule private lunches in their calendars and have secret follow-up appointments they never mention to their husbands." Her lips parted, but no words came out. For the first time, she looked caught. "How do you know about that?" she finally asked. I scoffed. "So now you admit?" "I'm not stupid, Heather. You are hiding something. Just tell me the truth." She shook her head, stepping back slightly. "You are making this into something it is not. There is nothing going on between me and Dr. Carter. He is our doctor, for God's sake. Do you even hear how crazy you sound?" I let out a dry laugh. "Crazy? I feel crazy, Heather, because I have spent the last 11 years believing I could trust you. But now I am not so sure." She looked at me, eyes pleading like she was begging me to stop, to just let it go. But I was done letting things go. This conversation was far from over. "You think I do not hear myself?" I shot back. "I hear everything, Heather. I hear Kevin telling me how cozy you two look downtown. I hear every excuse you've been feeding me all week." She stepped forward, her voice shaking now. "I'm not cheating on you, okay? I swear. You are making something out of nothing." But her eyes told a different story. They flickered to the side, avoiding mine. She was not used to being backed into a corner, and I could see the panic creeping in. "If it is nothing," I said, my voice calmer now, almost cold, "then why did you not tell me about lunch? Or about your little follow-up consultation with Dr. Carter?" Her breath hitched, and for a moment, I thought she was about to break, about to tell me everything. But then, she straightened her shoulders and shook her head like she was shaking off the weight of my accusations. "Because I knew you would react like this," she snapped. "You always twist things into something they are not. I did not tell you because I wanted to avoid this whole interrogation, this distrust." I let out a bitter laugh. "Avoiding the truth is not exactly helping your case, Heather." She crossed her arms, her chest rising and falling as she tried to regain control of the conversation. "You have no proof," she whispered. "Nothing. You are accusing me based on Kevin's assumptions and your own paranoia. That is not fair." I wanted to yell, to throw something, to make her see the damage she had already done. But instead, I stepped back, forcing myself to let her words settle. She was right about one thing. I did not have proof. Not solid proof, anyway. Just gut instincts, suspicious glances, and half-truths. But deep down I knew. "You are hiding something," I said quietly. "And I'm going to find out what it is." Her face twisted in frustration, her fingers gripping the edge of her sweater. "You will regret this," she murmured. "You are tearing us apart with your paranoia." I met her gaze, unwavering. "No, Heather. You tore us apart the moment you started lying." She stared at me for a second longer, then turned and stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind her. The sound echoed through the house like the final nail in the coffin. But I was not done yet. I stayed on the couch, my mind racing. My gut told me she was hiding something. Maybe it was not a full-blown affair. Maybe it had not gotten that far yet. But it was something, and without proof, she could keep denying it, gaslighting me, making me feel like I was the one going crazy. I needed answers. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts, hovering over Kevin's name. I hesitated for a second before pressing call. He picked up after the second ring. "Hey, man," he said cautiously. "Everything okay?" "Not really," I admitted. I confronted Heather. She denied everything, acted like I am insane for even questioning it. Kevin let out a long sigh. "Yeah, I figured she would. Did you see anything else that day?" I asked. "Anything you did not mention before?" There was silence on the other end of the line. "Look, I don't want to make things worse," Kevin said slowly, "but yeah, when I saw them, they were not just sitting across from each other." She touched his arm a few times, leaned in close, like really close. It did not look like some professional meeting, if you know what I mean. My grip on the phone tightened. "Why did you not tell me that earlier?" "Because I was not sure if it meant anything," he admitted. "I did not want to jump to conclusions and blow things up for you if it turned out to be nothing. But now I think you are right to be suspicious." "Yeah," I muttered. "Me too." I ended the call, staring at the phone in my hands. Kevin's words echoed in my head. It did not look like a medical discussion. Heather touching Dr. Carter's arm, leaning in like she was sharing something private. That image sat heavy in my chest, making my stomach churn. I needed more. I needed something concrete. My eyes drifted to her purse sitting on the kitchen counter, the zipper partially open. I hated myself for what I was about to do. But trust was no longer an option. I needed the truth. I reached for her phone, my heart pounding as I unlocked it with the passcode I had known for years. The text messages? Nothing suspicious. Just conversations with friends and family. Small talk. Nothing that raised a red flag. But then I checked her call log. And that was where I found it. She had called Dr. Carter the night before our argument. A 20-minute call. Why would she need to talk to him for that long? Especially after she had just seen him. My pulse hammered as I switched to her browsing history. Most of it was harmless. Shopping sites, social media, random articles about home decorating. But then, one search stood out. Signs your husband is suspicious of you. I exhaled sharply, my hands gripping the phone tighter. She knew. She had seen this coming. She had been preparing for this confrontation, figuring out how to gaslight me, how to deflect. That was why she had been so defensive, why she had turned it back on me, accusing me of paranoia. Because she knew she was guilty. I put the phone back exactly how I had found it, careful not to leave a trace. My chest felt tight, like I was suffocating under the weight of the truth I had uncovered. Heather was not just hiding something. She was actively covering her tracks. When she finally came back downstairs, her eyes were red and puffy. She had been crying, but I did not know if it was from guilt or frustration. She sat on the edge of the couch, hands folded in her lap, not looking directly at me. For the first time in our entire relationship, I did not feel like I knew the woman sitting in front of me. I let the silence hang, watching her fidget. She could not stand silence. She needed me to say something first. But this time, I was not going to make it easy for her. I stared at her, barely registering the words that had just left her mouth. My own wife, an affair, a pregnancy, a miscarriage. The room seemed to close in around me. The noise of the cafe faded into the background, muffled like I was underwater. My hands trembled at my sides, my pulse hammering in my ears. You had an affair. I repeated, each word tasting like ash. Julia wiped at her tears, but they kept falling. Yes, she whispered. I did. A bitter laugh escaped my lips, sharp and humorless. And you lied to me for over a year. You let me sit there, living my life, thinking everything was fine, when all along, you were hiding this. I was scared, she said, her voice breaking. I did not know how to tell you. I made a mistake, and I was trying to fix it without hurting you any more than I already had. I shook my head, stepping back like I needed space just to breathe. Hurting me, I repeated. You think lying to my face, sneaking around, covering up an entire pregnancy and miscarriage is sparing me from pain? Do you even hear yourself, Julia? Dr. Bradley finally spoke, his voice quiet. I was only helping her through the aftermath. That is all. I turned my glare to him, my chest tightening. And what gave you the right to be the one she confided in? Why not me? Why not her husband? Julia looked away, her whole body trembling now. Because I was afraid if you knew the truth, you would leave me, she admitted. I exhaled sharply, trying to hold back the rage clawing its way up my throat. You know what, Julia? Maybe you should have thought about that before you slept with someone else. She sobbed harder, and for the first time in this entire nightmare, I saw it. Real regret. Real pain. But I could not bring myself to care. Not anymore. The weight of everything came crashing down on me all at once. The late nights, the lies, the way she had gaslit me into thinking I was paranoid. It all made sense now. I had spent weeks driving myself crazy over Dr. Bradley, only to find out the real betrayal had happened long before that. You have no idea what this has done to me, I said, my voice low and raw. You broke everything, Julia. Every memory, every moment, every piece of trust one ever had in you. She reached for me, desperation in her eyes. Please, I love you. I never stopped loving you. I was trying to fix this, to make things right. I stepped back, her touch now something I could not bear. You do not fix something like this, Julia. You do not erase this kind of betrayal. The cafe felt too small, too suffocating. People were staring, but I did not care. Let them watch. Let them see what a broken marriage looked like. Kevin, still standing near the door, cleared his throat. Maybe we should get out of here, man. I nodded slowly, my eyes never leaving Julia's. Yeah, I murmured. I think I have heard enough. Her face crumpled. What does that mean? I did not answer. I just turned and walked out. I sat in the driver's seat, gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The house behind me stood still, as if mocking the years I'd spent inside it, believing in something that had never really been there. I exhaled, long and slow, letting the cold air fill my lungs. Julia's last whisper, her final desperate pleas, still echoed in my ears, but had no power over me anymore. Not now, not after everything. I turned the key, the engine roaring to life beneath me. As I pulled away from the house, I didn't look back. The roads were nearly empty, just me and the occasional pair of headlights cutting through the darkness. My mind felt strangely quiet. No more replaying conversations. No more obsessing over what I could have done differently. No more wondering why. I knew why. Julia had made her choices, and now I was making mine. I did not know where I was going, only that I could not stay. I drove for miles, passing through empty intersections, past the gas stations and fast food joints we used to stop at. Every little thing reminded me of her, of us, of the life we had built together. But that life was gone now, reduced to nothing more than a pile of broken trust and unanswered questions. At some point, I pulled into an old roadside diner, the kind with flickering neon lights, and a single waitress who looked like she had seen everything life had to offer. I sat at the counter, ordered black coffee, and let the silence settle around me. For the first time in what felt like forever, I had no one to answer to. No more lies to uncover. No more battles to fight. I was free. The sun was rising by the time I checked into a cheap motel just outside of town. The room smelled like stale cigarettes and cheap cleaning supplies, but I did not care. It was not home, but at least it was mine. I threw my bag onto the bed, sank into the chair by the window, and stared at my reflection in the dirty glass. I looked different, older maybe, or just tired. I thought about the man I had been before all of this. The husband who believed in his wife, who thought love was enough to keep people honest. That man was gone, and maybe that was a good thing. I was not naive anymore. I knew that trust, once broken, never really healed. It left scars, deep ones, and no amount of therapy or promises could change that. Julia had said she wanted to fix things, but what she really wanted was to erase the past, to pretend like it had never happened. That was not how life worked. Some mistakes you do not come back from. Some choices seal your fate, and she had sealed ours. Days passed, and I did not go back. I ignored the missed calls, the messages, the emails. I did not need to hear her excuses. I did not need to hear how sorry she was. I had heard enough lies to last me a lifetime. I filed for divorce a week later. It was not easy. 11 years is a long time to untangle. But as I signed the papers, I felt something shift inside me. The final piece of her hold on me breaking away. I had spent too long mourning a life that was already dead. It was time to start over. Without her. Months later, I found myself in a new city, in a new apartment, with new routines that did not revolve around Julia. I was different now. Harder, smarter, stronger. And when I thought about her, about everything that had happened, I did not feel anger anymore. I did not feel pain. I just felt done. And in the end, that was all the closure I needed.